Hello, 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 and welcome to Monday Morning, where useful idiots, Aaron Maté and myself, Katie Halper, go over the worst moments from the Sunday morning news shows that we watch so that you don't have to. Thank you so much for coming. And because we know that you can't get enough of us, what do we do after this? We have an after party, the hottest after party on a Monday morning on Call-In. So join us on Call-In right after this. And free app. You get to ask us questions and make your comments. Also, Aaron, you and I should make sure we tweet out. Oh, you beat me to it. You did the live now. All right, guys.
I did it. Yep.
You did it. And guys, I don't need to tell you what to do, right? You know what to do. It's a very little thing that you can do to help us beat evil forces like Pod Save America. And you do that by liking the stream. That's about it. How was your weekend, Aaron?
My weekend was it was good. It was good. How was yours?
Good. I can't remember a thing I did. What did I do this weekend? Oh, I actually went to a church. I went to church.
Okay.
I have a friend who sings at church. And I saw carols and lessons.
So they conducted a lesson at the church while also caroling?
The lesson. Okay. So they would alternate. It was a lesson, then a carol, then a lesson, then a carol. And actually, I came up with a really good idea for a book, a coffee book, which no one steal it. This is me patenting it right now in real time, which is Miserable Kids at Religious Services. Because I think it's a transcultural phenomenon. You see kids at churches, synagogues. I've never been into a mosque, but I assume there too. So people should just, sneak some snaps, some pics, take some pics of kids miserable. It's pretty funny.
That sounds like a lesson worth learning.
A lesson worth learning, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, only people who belong to those organizations could do it. So it's on you, Christians, Muslims, and Jews out there to do it. Don't make me enter your houses of worship. That would be awkward and problematic.
Well, a lot of lessons learned this week on the Sunday news shows, and now all these shows are grappling with the new regime of Twitter, where Elon Musk, the new owner of Twitter, is censoring people, kind of like how the old regime censored people too, except this time people being censored are some of the people who previously advocated the old censorship. So it's a little bit awkward and it's a little confusing for people. So we're going to get into that. But first up, we're going to look at the Chuckster, where we always start.
Of course. He's our morning star.
Yes. And
our guiding light.
He will give us the lay of the land.
Our drinking board.
And a good Sunday morning as we wrap up the year and prepare to enter a new one.
Okay, now Wilson mentioned this. I hope he's okay because he's sitting down.
Yeah, this is unusual. Usually he's standing up because he's so, excited to tell us his insights about the week. But must be serious if he's sitting down.
Yeah. All right, let's see what he has to say.
Political warfare has shifted our playing field just inches. Both parties are still struggling with the same problems they've had for the last few years. This Congress and the next one are two of the most closely divided in the past century. Republicans will have just a 10-seat majority in the House. And the Senate has moved from a 50-50 Senate controlled by Democrats via a VP tiebreaker to a 51-49 split. Not exactly a mandate for the Democrats. After a disappointing midterm cycle, Republican leaders are the ones under fire right now. The head of the Republican National Committee is mired in a bitter fight over who will lead the party. Kevin McCarthy is scrambling to get the votes he needs to be Speaker of the House, saying hardliners on the right have not moved, and it may put the agenda in jeopardy. And then there's Donald Trump running again after losing and in more legal trouble. A major announcement this week bordered on self-parody. It was an infomercial for digital trading cards of himself selling for $99. It was even too much for former advisor Steve Bannon to defend. Democrats, meanwhile, may have a false sense of security, acting like they won the midterms. But they did lose the House, and they did lose the popular vote. President Biden's approval rating is stuck where it was a year ago, in the low to mid-40s. In many ways, their successes of the midterms came perhaps only because of the excesses of the Trump right. This is the backdrop for the current immigration debate over the end of Title 42, the COVID-era policy that allowed officials to expel migrants from U.S. borders quickly, a crisis that has been mired in government inaction. In fact, some Democrats have criticized all of Washington for not doing more over 2 administrations.
The reality is that government has not been up to the task. Partisan politics have gotten in the way.
Who's listening to the men and women in green and blue? And more importantly, who's listening to our border communities?
I've actually written letters to the president asking him not to lift Title 42. I mean, we're still not completely out of a pandemic.
There's no question in my mind that we are not prepared for a post-Title 42 world. And we need to reconcile the fact that the federal government is not committed to comprehensive reform.
All right. So a couple things there. Post-Title 42 world reminds me of a post-9/11 world. Remember that term that W used to throw around?
Yeah.
So Gavin Newsom, the liberal, allegedly liberal Democrat, progressive, woke Democrat, does not want to lift Title 42, which, as Chuckster said, is a way to basically expel migrants, undocumented people, under the excuse of COVID. And of course, the government is acting like COVID's over, which makes it awkward for them to keep something, which would make it awkward for them to keep something that's based on that. And we're going to see a bunch of different people address this Title 42. But we got to show you the news. This show is about the news. And the Chuckster mentioned Donald Trump's NFT. And so we got to provide you with that to keep you informed. So Wilson, let's show people this NFT video.
Hello, everyone. This is Donald Trump. Hopefully your favorite president of all time, better than Lincoln, better than Washington.
He's kind of setting himself up for failure for some people.
He's a high bar. This is where sometimes you wonder if he's just doing a giant, this entire thing has just been a comedy bit.
Yeah.
The last 6 years.
Yeah.
Because this is funny. This is funny stuff.
But you know what? This is actually a new turn. This is some humility for Trump. He says, hopefully your favorite president.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like the old Trump would be like, undoubtedly, absolutely, surely, certainly, your favorite president, the best president ever. He's leaving.
That's years.
Yeah.
That's years of self-reflection right there.
There you
could
go.
Lead Trump to the point where he could even fathom that someone might not think of him as their favorite president. So that's why he's saying hopefully. So he's grown. Trump has grown, everybody.
Yeah.
He's grown. Yeah. This is part of his whole new pitch. He's a new man.
Yeah. He's a transformed personal transformation.
With an important announcement to make, I'm doing my first official Donald J. Trump NFT collection right here and right now. They're called Trump Digital Trading Cards. These cards feature some of the really incredible artwork pertaining to my life and my career. It's been very exciting. You can collect your Trump digital cards just like a baseball card or other collectibles. Here's one of the best parts. Each card comes with an automatic chance to win amazing prizes like dinner with me. I don't know if that's an amazing prize, but it's what.
You see? This newfound humility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know if that's an amazing prize to have dinner with him. I'm offended for him.
That is an amazing prize.
That is an amazing prize. Yeah.
Yes. Not only the best president in history, but the most humble president in history. That's really his new pitch. Yes.
I like that image of him. Is that him with Pelosi?
I don't think that's Pelosi.
No, that's long hair. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you look
on the left, I don't think he'd allow himself to be.
I know, unless he was like blowing her up or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
What we have, or golf with you and a group of your friends at one of my beautiful golf courses, and they are beautiful. I'm also doing Zoom calls, a one-on-one meeting, autographing memorabilia, and so much more. We're doing a lot. My official Trump digital trading cards are $99, which doesn't sound like very much for what you're getting. Buy one and you will join a very exclusive community. It's my community, and I think it's something you're going to like, and you're going to like it a lot. They also and I think it's something you're going to like, and you're going to like it a lot. They also make perfect.
I'm just going to run this a little bit because that was such a tell. Look at this. He says, you're going to join a very exclusive community, and there's a shot of his helicopter and his part of his estate. And the suggestion there is if you buy these stupid digital cards, they're not even physical cards, they're digital cards, you will join this exclusive, ultra elite world. Which is
it's funny. He obviously doesn't really understand what NFT is. He's like explaining it like to himself as much as he is. I mean, I barely understand NFT, honestly. Yeah. But it's funny. He's like, they're just like cards, but they're digital.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. And if you buy one of these digital fake cards, you can ride in the helicopter and be a part of that world. I mean, that's the selling point. But I guess he's got enough of a fan base still to be able to justify this. People who want to buy this.
Yeah, I mean, it is a steal, and when you think about it, it's not even $100. It's less than $100.
That's true. 99. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
A very exclusive community. It's my community, and I think it's something you're going to like, and you're going to like it a lot. They also.
I love that. He's like, you joined this exclusive community, but by the way, it's my community. I still own the community.
Know.
So you're not really a part of it. It's still mine. It's just mine.
Right. You get to kind of lurk. You get to see the community, not be part of it. You're no Nick Fuentes or Kanye, so you're not part of my community.
They'll make perfect gifts. So you can buy them with your credit card or crypto. All you need is an email address. Go to collecttrumpcards.com and buy your Trump digital trading cards right now before they are all gone, and they will be gone. This is my first official Trump trading card NFT collection, and you get a chance to meet me. Go to collecttrumpcards.com right now, and remember, Christmas is coming, and this makes a great Christmas gift.
No purchase necessary.
What about Hanukkah, Trump? Half your family celebrates Hanukkah.
Well,
I feel invisibilized.
He can make up for that slip by issuing a new round of Trump Hanukkah digital cards.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Have him let in the menorah.
A menorah, exactly. Dreidels.
Yeah.
Maybe gold-plated dreidels, golden menorahs.
I'd buy that. That sounds great.
Yeah. Just an idea, Trump.
Well, all right. What a holiday treat that was. So the news, though, or one of the big pieces of news of this week is that Biden is finally going to let Title 42 expire.
Yeah.
And that again is the Trump era order that basically denied undocumented immigrants the right to seek asylum and allows the U.S. to deport them very easily.
Yeah.
And that was a policy, that one of those cases where Biden comes in saying he's going to end the Trump era, reverse all of Trump's policies, but then he keeps a signature Trump policy like Title 42. Well, finally, it's going to expire. And so now people who are very hawkish on the immigration issue are throwing up their arms.
Right, including Gavin Newsom.
Including Gavin Newsom, the Democratic governor of California. So Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's an advisor to Biden, was on Face the Nation and was asked about this.
Why doesn't he go to the border? He was just in Arizona. Why wasn't it worth his time?
Okay, one thing I want to point out is that Margaret is from Connecticut. I was reading about her. She actually studied Middle Eastern studies and Arabic, and she won an award for her thesis. And she got a, what's it called? Where you go to a Fulbright, I believe. Very impressive. But the point is, she did go to University of Virginia, and I don't know if it's me, but I hear a real Southern accent in this opening from her.
Well, why doesn't he go to the border? He was just in Arizona. Why wasn't it worth his time?
Why wasn't it worth his time?
Well, you have to remember, Margaret, when the president travels, it's not like you or I jumping on an airplane and getting off and going to our destination.
Okay, guys, you got to remember that. I know we all think of Joe Biden hopping on a flight, riding coach, asking for extra pretzels, taking those headphones when they pass him out. But that's not what it's like. I know he's Scrappy Joe, and you think of him as very relatable, Scranton Joe, but it's actually different.
everything comes to a halt. So all of these things are in consideration for the president. Is that the best use of resources? All of the resources that will be diverted on the ground when the president makes a visit.
Is that why he didn't go?
Why don't I just say, yeah, he didn't want to go. Like, why do you have to justify not going to the border? Does his presence at the border help anything? I mean, any presidential trip, it's basically a photo op.
Right.
So why don't you just say, yeah, he doesn't want to go. He's got other things to do.
Yeah. Or she could say, well, that's actually what we leave Kamala Harris to do. That's Kamala's lane.
Because that
fail there.
Yeah. Because that was her beat. Like, that was her portfolio. She was going to solve the border crisis. So
she was going to get to the root causes, the root problems.
Yes. Without talking about any of them.
Right.
For example, without talking about U.S. intervention and regime change policies throughout Central America and how they've ruined societies and created so many people desperate to flee their countries that the U.S. has destabilized. But she can't talk about that, so it's a tough beat.
But to be fair, she did have a very good idea for dealing with the root causes when she said to Guatemalans, "Do not come.
Don't come." Yeah.
Don't come. Yeah. That was very good. Root cause. Yeah.
Visit. Well, I can't speak to why he has or has not gone. I'm just speaking to the fact that it's a bit more disruptive for the president of the United States to travel than you or I. But
okay, you already said that. Obviously, she went in with this ridiculous talking point, which is like, avoid the question and just focus on how traveling is different when you're the president.
See, and this is where Democrats have this fear of looking, soft, like soft on crime, soft on immigration. So they come up with these ridiculous excuses not to answer the question. But just say, no, like, he doesn't want to go for a photo op on the border. You don't have to hide from that question. It doesn't matter whether Biden goes. Who cares whether Biden goes to the border or not?
Yeah. What the president has done is continue to lean in on this immigration issue. It's something that
guys, he's leaning in.
He's leaning in.
Like Sheryl Sandberg. He's obviously read that book
that he ran on. And what we know over the past 2 years, every single thing that the president has run on, he's put time and resources into addressing it. So immigration, we know, is a problem that he did not create.
Yeah, I mean, I could give a pretty sizable list of things he ran on that he hasn't followed through on. Like, what about, for example, we talked about this last week on Useful Idiots, ending the Saudi-led war on Yemen. That was a big thing. And what did he just do? He forced Bernie Sanders to withdraw his measure that would end U.S. support for the Saudi war on Yemen. And setting up for workers, well, he just sold out the rail workers. Yeah, could go down a pretty long list.
Yep.
Our issues with immigrations are decades-long issues, and he will continue to lean in through the White House and through Congress to get comprehensive.
Did he lean in, by the way, also on a $15 minimum wage? What happened to that?
No, he didn't lean. He tried to lean in, but who got right in front of him as he was leaning was the parliamentarian.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
She lean blocked him.
Yeah, she lean blocked. Yeah. And that was enough for Biden to pull back. Instead of really leaning in, which is what you're supposed to do. Even in the face, I haven't read Sheryl Sandberg's book, but I imagine she might say that if someone like a Senate parliamentarian says you can't enact one of your signature policies, you don't just have to retreat and cower. You can probably find other ways to lean in.
Yeah.
When that happens.
You can shove. I mean, you can actually shove. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Why not? Why not? Okay. Well, we can watch more of this clip, I think.
I think that's the end of it.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Right? Sadly. But guys, if we were playing a drinking game, we would drink at Lean In. And you know what? It's not just this woman who's saying it. Those of you who are smart enough to subscribe to our Substack know, because we do the Thursday Throwdown, which honestly, if you don't already subscribe, it's give yourself the gift for Kwanzaa, Christmas, or Hanukkah. Give yourself a gift of Substack, because you get extended interviews and you get to ask us questions at the Absurd Arena. And we do the Thursday Throwdown, which is a media reaction to non-Sunday news. Now, let's look at what Karine Jean-Pierre, Biden's spokesperson, said the other day when asked about Yemen.
Is the White House whipping against Senator Bernie Sanders' war powers resolution that's set for a vote in the Senate tonight? Look, we've spoken to this before. I don't have anything much more to add. I know my colleagues actually was asked this question last week. Don't have anything more to really discuss or lean into on this.
Lean in. It's the new craze. It's the new fad. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's talking about it.
What's interesting there is she says lean in is in a sort of like an excuse making it in a sort of like a passive context. She's saying, I don't have anything to lean into on that. Usually when you're saying lean in, isn't that more of like an affirmative way? Like I'm leaning into this now, but she's saying I don't have anything to lean into.
Right.
So the term is really being overused. And just, every time we see a clip of Karine Jean-Pierre, I've never seen a White House press secretary who looks down as much at her notes.
I know.
As much as, and that's not because I think she's relying on her notes. I think it's because it's so embarrassing and tough to be in that job because you're lying and deflecting all the time. So you just don't want to look up as you're saying.
She's leaning into that. She's leaning into down. She's leaning down.
Yes.
Yeah.
She can write a whole new book about
leaning down.
Yeah. About how to avoid taking responsibility for the words you're saying by just looking down and never making eye contact.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's good.
But it's just that's a tough job, and it's just obvious. It doesn't seem like she's very happy in that job.
No, how could you be?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
By the way,
if you have a White House press secretary, just a little tip: you have to have someone who enjoys lying. They have to enjoy. That's like number one job requirement.
Yeah, you're right.
If they don't enjoy lying, they're going to be looking down all the time, and it's awkward for everybody.
Yeah. You need someone who doesn't look down on lying.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea. We just saved a lot of potential interviews for her replacement.
All right. Well, we have more on the southern border and the end of Title 42. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, much like Gavin Newsom, has a warning for us about what would happen if once Title 42 goes away. And again, Title 42 basically is it's a Trump era order that makes it easier for the government to deport people and denies their right to apply for asylum.
Now, before we go to Abbott, this is going to be because I know you guys are really thirsty for Abbott. This is a thirst trap by putting Abbott out there. How are we doing in the likes, Wilson? Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots.
Let's see, we got... I think did I put in the wrong YouTube link? I must have, because we definitely don't have 3.3K likes right now.
That would be great.
I'm going.
That would be great.
605.
All right. We're almost halfway there. Let's get to 700.
We know you like the show, or else why else would you be watching? I mean, you could just be a masochist. Fair enough.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough if that's your thing, to torture yourself and watching a show you don't like. But if you do like the show, give it a like, and also boost our self-esteem.
Yeah.
What a great way to start the week when at least more than half the audience likes what you're doing. It's a wonderful way to start off the week. Yes.
Yeah, and as I told everyone, I have to report every month our likes to that YouTube man.
Right.
And he laughs at me when we don't get a lot. So
really? That is humiliating. Guys, don't do that to Wilson.
But we made it 700. Thank you, everyone.
All right, good.
All right. Thanks so much.
Now that treat that we promised you, Abbott.
People walk in single file. The vehicle they're going to is a Border Patrol vehicle.
We joined Governor Greg Abbott of Texas as he surveyed the border this week, one of the Republican governors fighting to keep Title 42 in place. That Trump policy implemented at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, which allows the U.S. government to immediately expel most migrants as a public health risk. Since March of 2020, it's been used nearly 2.5 million times. What do you think happens next week when Title 42 comes to an end?
If the courts do not intervene and put a halt to the removal of Title 42, it's going to be total chaos.
But how do you keep that in place? That is about COVID. That is about public health risk.
Whether it's COVID or something.
Oh yeah, right. I think we forgot to explain that. Basically, Title 42 was. Oh no, Katie.
No, we said that.
We did.
Yeah.
So just again, that Title 42 was as Katie explained was justified on the basis that because of COVID, this is an exception that allows the government to take away people's asylum rights based on a public health risk, and that is now going away. And so, but what does he want? So it's chaos to let people apply for asylum, and aren't they already saying it's total chaos anyway? I mean, it's not as if they're saying that right now everything is normal at the border. They're always talking about the immigration issue being a question of chaos. So basically, they're saying it's going to be even more chaos.
Right. It's always a crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. But it fundamentally, this issue will never go as long as Central America, their governments are not allowed to chart their own course and have to, obey U.S. dictates. And as long as the U.S. is doing stuff like, trying to overthrow governments like in Cuba and Venezuela, especially Venezuela, you're constantly going to have people fleeing because their governments, as in the case of Venezuela, are under harsh sanctions that deliberately prevent an economy from functioning. That's the point of U.S. sanctions. So as long as you have those policies, you're always going to have the kind of chaos that Republicans claim that they're against.
Very true.
Well, let's hear more from Greg Abbott.
Another issue, when you have people coming across the globe without knowing at all what their health status is, that almost by definition is a public health risk. There's every reason to keep that in place.
You're talking about the flu, you're talking about RSV. In fact, you've seen that people coming across, they were saying maybe one person a day with COVID. So how does a judge look at that and go, oh, it's still a public health risk?
But some do come across with COVID, and no one knows exactly who comes across with COVID. These people are not tested when they come across the border. And so who knows how many people have COVID? Who knows what other type of disease they may have? The answer is nobody knows because nobody is testing them.
Yeah, who or you're just fear-mongering to justify any possible reason to keep out desperate people who have a legal right to seek asylum. Who knows what kind of disease they have?
Right. And the irony is that this is someone who used his power to stop schools from having masks.
Did he really? So there we go. So he claims to be
Mr. COVID stickler.
Yeah. He claims to be for public health, but not in his own schools. Just when foreigners are trying to cross the border to flee desperate conditions.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Let's hear from another Texan, Henry Cuellar.
We don't have.
Oh, we took that one out. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't need that one then.
Yeah, we can go back to later on, but
yeah,
there are other matters.
Yeah, sure. We've spent enough time on immigration. Yeah.
But we can return to it later if there's time. But if you recall, everybody, before the border, before the whole war in Ukraine, there was the January 6th committee. The most important.
You may not remember that because the news never talked about it.
The most important commission in the history of Congress is now, actually today, could be as we speaking, making some criminal referrals to the Justice Department. And that's basically a thing where this House committee tells the Justice Department, hey, we think you should make these prosecutions for this matter that you're already investigating. So it's like the House is coming in and tapping on Merrick Garland's shoulder and just trying to give him a nudge toward prosecuting a matter that he's already actually prosecuting and investigating. But for some reason, the House saying it has been given this huge amount of weight and attention. So here is none other than Adam Schiff, the chair of no, not the chair, but one of the most important people on the January 6th committee, talking about today's criminal referrals, which will likely include President Trump.
Do you think the evidence is there that Donald Trump committed any of the crimes I just mentioned and that the cases are prosecutable, that you could get a conviction?
Yeah. I think that the evidence is there that Donald Trump committed criminal offenses in connection with his efforts to overturn the election. And viewing it as a former prosecutor, I think there's sufficient evidence to charge the president.
To get a conviction now?
Well, I don't know what the Justice Department has. I do know what's in the public record. The evidence seems pretty plain to me. But I would want to see the full body of evidence if I were in the prosecutor's shoes to make a decision. But, this is someone who, in multiple ways, tried to pressure state officials to find votes that didn't exist. This is someone who tried to interfere with a joint session, even inciting a mob to attack the Capitol. If that's not criminal, then I don't know what is.
So you're going to vote yes on insurrection, on referring.
It's kind of like that song, if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Yeah.
And if that's not criminal, I don't know what is. And look, this is from the guy who, maybe it actually is. Certainly what Trump did, I think, was impeachable in inciting a riot and mounting this fraudulent campaign to contest the result of the election by claiming that it was stolen from him, for which there was no evidence. That was crazy. But the messenger here is Adam Schiff, who is the same guy who for more than 2 years went on these same Sunday news shows and claimed that he had seen secret evidence of a massive Trump-Russia conspiracy. And when all that, of course, predictably collapsed, and there was no such evidence of a Trump-Russia conspiracy, basically took no responsibility and just kept doubling down. And this is what I think he's continuing to do here by basically... Now, to his credit...
Are you saying he's leaning in?
He's leaning in. He's definitely leaning in. Now, to his credit, Trump did give him a very big gift by launching the whole Stop the Steal thing, and that was...
Right.
That was deranged and crazy. But I just think at this point, for us to treat Adam Schiff as a serious voice on this, as an objective voice, I think that's a mistake.
If I can't have you, I don't want nobody, baby. That's another song that came to mind.
But today, and also, look, the other point is that a lot of attention will be paid to today's decision. The committee is later on today, as we're recording this. It's in a few hours, the hearing. But ultimately, as Schiff kind of acknowledges, it's the Justice Department that actually has access to more evidence than he does, because they have grand jury power. They have surveillance powers that the January 6th committee just doesn't have. So ultimately, it's their decision whether or not they charge. And that's why this whole exercise of a congressional hearing has just been for show, because a federal investigation is done privately. This has been done on television to give fodder for cable news. And that's really what all of this is about. So ultimately, it doesn't even matter what the House recommends or not, because it's not going to have an impact, I think, on whether or not Trump gets charged. But we'll see. Let's hear a little bit more.
Insurrection, obstruction of an official proceeding, and conspiracy to defraud the federal government, all three?
I can't comment on what referrals we're going to make. We will have a vote on referrals, as well as approving our overall report. But I can tell you that our process has been to look meticulously at the evidence and compare it to various statutes. Is there sufficient evidence as to each element of a particular crime? We are not referring, or at least won't be voting to refer everyone we think there may be evidence, because we want to focus on those for which we believe there's the strongest evidence.
So I know you can't speak for the whole committee, but I'm talking about how you personally are going to vote. You're still not going to...
Well, let me just say, I'm happy to share my personal views, which is...
But do you think he committed insurrection, obstruction of an official proceeding, and conspiracy to defraud the federal government?
I don't want to telegraph too much what we're considering, but
Don't telegraph.
I will say that
I'm sure it's such a mystery.
I know.
How's Adam Schiff going to vote? Oh, yes. Oh, we're all on the edge of our seat.
Which way is it going to go?
And this, sadly, everybody, this is the last hurrah for the January 6th committee, because the Republicans are taking over the House. So this is their final curtain call. So this sadly could be the last of our January 6th hearing coverage on Monday morning, because at least there won't be a committee anymore. So this is a sad day for us too.
Very sad.
This has taken up so much time in the first couple of years.
Not enough time, in my opinion. I would lean into it more.
All right. Well, we can move on to the next Adam Schiff clip, where he has something to say about Twitter. And if anyone's been paying attention to the news, Twitter, there's just a nonstop meltdown on Twitter, where Elon Musk, the new owner, is acting a lot like the old owners in arbitrarily censoring people. In this case, people who are critical of him, or in Musk's opinion, are endangering him by sharing a location of his private jet or something. Anyway.
Yeah, which was the sad thing is that was done by a fan of his, that jet thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a kid who was a fan and thought like the jet was really cool and wanted to monitor where it was. And then Elon wanted him to shut it down and offered him like $5,000 for it. And the kid wanted more. And then instead he just went after him because he's a little bitch. Elon Musk. Sorry, he is though.
That's really funny. So he suspended a fan.
Yep. I mean, they're both. It's kind of. I'm like, what kind of nerd are you? Like, to be obsessed with Elon's whereabouts. So it's almost like he deserves it. Honestly,
he deserves it.
Like they deserve each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So under the previous Twitter leadership, liberal journalists were cheering when people got suspended who they didn't like, and when even content was blocked. So, for example, when the New York Post reported on the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, the New York Post was locked out of its account, and you could not share that article about Hunter Biden's laptop on Twitter. And the Twitter files, as Matt Taibbi's been reporting, newly exposed how they knew they had no evidence at all for the claim that this all came from Russia and that resulted from hacking. No, it was a real laptop that came from Hunter Biden dropping off his laptop at a computer repair shop. Anyway, but now that the old rules are being applied, but just to the people who used to support censorship under the old government, now there's been a huge controversy. Now there's calls for cracking down on Twitter. So here's Adam Schiff talking about this issue.
We've got a big problem right now with social media companies and their failure to moderate content and the explosion of hate on Twitter, the banning of journalists on Twitter. I don't think these companies should enjoy an immunity from liability when they behave this way. We can't tell them what to say or not say, but we gave them immunity. We said, if you'll be responsible moderators of content, we will give you immunity. They haven't been, so why should they continue to enjoy that immunity from responsibility and liability?
So Adam Schiff is threatening to basically bring more oversight and more problems for Twitter. And all it took was Twitter suspending some liberal journalists. Now, Adam Schiff didn't care when Twitter suspended, conservative journalists or left-wing journalists. And there's a long list of people who, I follow who've been suspended because of views they shared that were dissenting from the proxy war in Ukraine, for example. But Adam Schiff didn't care about those people. It's only now that liberal journalists who've criticized Elon Musk are being throttled that finally now there is outcry over censorship. And the obvious answer is that there should be no censorship and there should be no arbitrary cancellations and content shouldn't be blocked. And that should apply equally to everybody. But unfortunately, things are so partisan that no one, at least in these networks, with a few exceptions, are able to articulate that. And as an example of someone who's a complete hypocrite on this, let's go to Jim Acosta. That's okay. Yeah. Let's go to Jim Acosta, who of CNN, who recently found out that he was locked out of his Twitter because Elon Musk put in this new rule where you can't share links to outside social media accounts like Facebook and Mastodon and
so pathetic.
Yeah. So Jim Acosta found himself on the receiving end of some censorship. And so this is what he said.
And by the way, I just want to give a shout out to Jim Acosta for pretending to be about free press and the Fourth Estate and refusing to say anything about Julian Assange when asked point blank.
That's right. There's a video of him when he's hawking his book about like how hard it is to be a journalist in Trump's America, him being asked by Matt Orfilia whether he has any words of support for Julian Assange. And Acosta has not. He won't answer the question. He just avoids it. And of course, Assange was on the receiving end of the most draconian anti-journalism prosecution of Trump's presidency when Trump's Justice Department indicted Assange under the Espionage Act. And of course, no words of support at all from Jim Acosta. So this is Jim Acosta talking about what happened to his Twitter account recently.
And I want to hear your story and more about it in just a few moments. But first, I want to get your reaction to this new policy. And I should note, my own account was locked overnight by Twitter. One of my tweets was found to have violated Twitter's new rule about promoting other sites. I had said, you can find me on Post and Mastodon, and I woke up this morning and my account was locked. I'm still trying to sort it out. But Lynette, this all feels very arbitrary and a little frenetic.
It does feel arbitrary and frenetic, Jim. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yes,
good.
it does.
Good. That's because censorship is not good. Maybe like the synapses are going here. Maybe he can put that thought together. Like, well, hey, if it's arbitrary toward me, maybe that also means it's arbitrary toward other people too, who previously I've been silent about or even cheered. Like, for example, when the Hunter Biden laptop story got censored right before an election. That's maybe a little arbitrary too.
I'm not sure the synapses are going to work, but let's see.
Well, that's it. That's Jim's complaint, and we'll check back on Jim Acosta to see if he makes that connection in future weeks. And so here's another person who's on the receiving end of the censorship. Aaron Rupar is a journalist. Like, he's the guy who, like, basically, like, if Michael Tracy or Glenn Greenwald go on Tucker Carlson, this guy will just tweet a screenshot.
Or Rokana.
Or anyone. If you go on like Fox, he'll just tweet like a screenshot. He'll just watch Fox News all day and then tweet a screenshot if you dare go on Fox News to share your message.
No matter what you're saying.
Yeah, no matter what you're saying. Because of course, because for some people like myself, that's the only way to reach a massive audience of people, because we're never allowed on CNN or MSNBC. Yeah. So anyway, but he also,
it's like especially ridiculous when you expect members of Congress not to go on Fox.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, so he was, and of course, he's someone who said nothing about the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story, and I think cheered it on. But he also was, I think, unfairly censored by Twitter when he shared among those links to. He was among the people who shared a link to the Elon jet tracker, the private jet tracker. So he was suspended, but then reinstated. But in that brief moment of like these liberal journalists being suspended for like a day or two, there was this massive freak out. And all of a sudden people started paying attention to Twitter censorship. And there's even a Wikipedia entry about the censorship. It's called the Thursday Night Massacre. So the censorship of these liberal Twitter accounts was deemed so egregious that this was worthy of a Wikipedia entry. And so here's Aaron Rupar.
Someone even compared it to Crystal Knox. Did you see that?
I did not see that, no, but I'm not surprised.
I'm glad you didn't see that. Yeah.
These people are ashamed. They'll compare. Any affront to them is always worthy of comparison to some historical calamity. So, alleged Russian hackers and trolls, that was worse than Pearl Harbor. We heard that a lot during Russiagate. And so I'm not surprised if people are comparing a brief suspension of some liberal journalists on Twitter. I hope they were just kidding. I hope that was a parody, maybe. Really?
It wasn't.
All right, well, let's listen to Aaron Rupar talking about what he learned from his brief day-long or 2-day-long censorship on Twitter.
Yeah, and I think that is something that, is probably part of the goal here, is to have that chilling effect. And it'll definitely make me think twice about taking little pot shots at him, because it's not really worth the cost. I mean, I've spent a decade building a huge following on Twitter of nearly 800,000 people, and I'm grateful for all of them. But as an independent journalist, that's my professional currency. And so being cut off from that audience not only was just kind of frustrating, and annoying in terms of my workflow, but really, endangers my livelihood in a certain way. So it's unfortunate that Elon Musk has that sort of power over me. And, again, I'm trying to kind of branch out to different platforms that I think will have more stability and more rules rather than just what the owner wants them to be on a given day.
Don't say that. Don't tell him that. He doesn't like that.
Listen. It's great that all these journalists are speaking up against censorship, but the point about having principles is, for example, in the case of censorship, is you're supposed to, if you actually have principles and not just aren't just completely self-interested, that means you'll stand up for the same rights
for people you disagree with.
Yeah, exactly. Like you'll stand up for other people's rights, not just for yourself. That means having principles.
You're asking for a lot, Aaron.
Yeah. But for example, I mean, I could, Garland Nixon is a leftist journalist. He was recently suspended from Twitter for some, stupid arbitrary reason. Did anybody say anything for him? Of course not. No one matters when these rules or these arbitrary rules are applied against people who they don't agree with. It's only
no one cares. Yeah,
no one cares. And so, but basically, this guy getting suspended for 12 hours or whatever it was, 24 hours, is enough for corporate media news coverage and giving them the chance to reflect on what they learned and how horrible censorship is. But they're never going to apply this for other people. It's only for themselves. And this is why.
And they don't even grapple with it. You know what I mean? Like, they don't even have a criteria for what should be allowed and not allowed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, like the principle, as I think we're about to see, Glenn Greenwald, who was on Fox News on Sunday, he talked about the acceptable instances where some censorship should be allowed. And that's basically when people are encouraging criminal activity or abetting criminal activity.
Right.
That's fair enough. But otherwise, we're going to live under this ridiculous system where it's just up to the whims of whoever the current owner of these social media giants is. And just as it was, I think, very naive to think that Elon Musk would be this bastion of free speech, it's equally ridiculous to think that the previous leadership of Twitter was somehow that things worked under them, because they also were banning people arbitrarily too. And also, it's just crazy that we're speaking so much about one stupid website, just Twitter.
Yeah.
But yet it plays such a huge outsized role. So anyway, let's actually see what Glenn Greenwald said, because he went on Media Buzz, I think that's the name of the show, with Howard Kurtz, and talked about all this.
Great to be with you, Ali.
Well, let's start with Matt Taibbi, because when CNN finally got around to doing a segment knocking down the Twitter files, there was this lead-in from Poppy Harlow. Musk selected a handful of journalists unaffiliated with major credible news organizations.
Yeah, I mean, this is how they think. They believe that in order to be a legitimate journalist, you need to go and work for a handful of gigantic media corporations that they deem legitimate. Fox, of course, is a large media corporation, but they wouldn't consider that legitimate. And they believe that one of the most noble and important traditions in journalism, independent journalism, somehow renders you illegitimate as a journalist, even though Matt Taibbi has 10,000 more journalistic accomplishments than Poppy Harlow could ever dream of having in her life. She's so willing to degrade and malign him simply because he doesn't work for a big corporation.
Right. And, of course, as you know, Washington Post referred to Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi as conservative journalists, then took that word out, but kind of stealth-edited. So the former Twitter safety director, Yoel Roth, who once referred to actual Nazis in the Trump White House, said after the Trump ban that multiple staffers told him that people implementing our policies are like Nazis following orders, and others outright compared Donald Trump to Hitler. I imagine that says something about the political coloration of the old Twitter.
You know, I think one of the things that we always have to go back to is the purpose of journalism, which is to shed light and transparency on what the most powerful actors in society, corporate or governmental, are doing in the most consequential decisions. All of this happened in the dark. We all had suspicions, but one of the things this did is show not just who they are, but how much their ideology infiltrated their decisions about who deserves to be heard and who doesn't, to the point that they regard half the country, the people who voted for Donald Trump, not as having the wrong views, but as actual Nazis, followers of Adolf Hitler. And so these are the most fanatical ideologues who have been in charge of our most influential social media platforms.
Right. Now, let's turn to the
All right. So, yeah. Anyway, look, either you're for free speech or you're not. And I hope that's the lesson that those who were on the receiving end of cancellations are taking away from this, that if you have principles, you'll apply those principles equally, not just when your own rights are violated.
Yeah, that would certainly be nice. We're going to have to wait and see.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. Let's, should we do a little Russia-Ukraine?
Of course.
Yeah. So we can skip clip 7, Wilson, and just go to clip 9. But basically, we don't hear as much on the Sunday news shows and cable news in general about Ukraine anymore, even though the war for Ukrainians is really in its most destructive phase. Russia has been increasingly targeting Ukraine's infrastructure and leaving millions of people without heat and power. But yet, I think just because the attention span of cable news, and also because I don't think this war is going as well as they told us it would for Ukraine as long as we arm them. I think there's been a reduction in attention of the war, but there still is a little bit of coverage. And so the ambassador, the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. was on this week with Martha Raddatz and talked about what Ukraine's goals are in this phase of the war.
And what about Crimea? President Zelensky says you will take back Crimea. That seems like a clear red line for Vladimir Putin. How do you take back Crimea?
Crimea is Ukraine. He illegally attacked us in 2014. He illegally took Crimea. Crimea is no different from any other
but
Ukrainian
taking it back
oblast.
would be very, very difficult.
Well, taking everything back is very, very difficult. Russia is a very large aggressor, is a nuclear terrorist state. They have nothing to do to be on our land since 2014. So everything is very difficult. And ultimately, we're paying a highest price for liberating our land and our people. But there is no other option because we know what happens under Russian occupation. They are killing and torturing and destroying Ukrainians.
Yeah, so look, they're not taking back Crimea. That's just, I don't think that's going to happen. And the other problem with this whole thing is no one ever, when talking about Crimea, there's never any discussion of what Crimeans want. And every poll shows actually that the majority of Crimeans actually want to be a part of Russia. And they've tried to separate from Ukraine going back a very, very long time. So anyway, and maybe that's just how you have to talk when you're under attack. You have to put on a brave face and talk about liberating all of your land. So I mean, it's their right to say all that stuff. But meanwhile, the head of the Ukrainian Armed Forces gave an interview recently to The Economist, where he basically said that I need a lot more equipment than I currently have, and if I don't get that equipment, then I'm not going to be able to repel Russia. And the article in The Economist goes on to acknowledge that that NATO doesn't have that equipment to provide. So the U.S. media isn't prepared to present us with that picture yet. But that to me is what the reality of the war is right now. And so I think all this talk about retaking Crimea is just bravado. And I think as long, my views are well known on this, that as long as there's no negotiations, it just means more unnecessary suffering, death. Yeah. But there's no talk. There was a bit of talk about that recently when Mark Milley, the chair of the Joint Chiefs, was talking about it, but all that's gone now. And now it's just in the worst time possible as winter is hitting, there's just talk of more war. And here's more from Oksana Markarova, the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S.
Now, as the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S., Oksana Markarova. Madam Ambassador, thank you for joining us this morning. And let's start where Tom Sufi-Burridge left off. President Zelensky has been asking for U.S. Patriot missile batteries. If he doesn't get them, what happens?
We have been asking for all air defense, and we see what happens when we don't have enough air defense. For 299 days, not only there is a full-fledged war and atrocities, but during the last 2 months, and you've seen it also personally, there is a massive attack on civilian infrastructure. 50% of the energy is destroyed, of the energy grid. We have to stop it, and the only way to do it is with increased number of air defense everywhere in Ukraine.
Yeah, so they are going to get the Patriot missiles from the U.S., it looks like. And that's what's funny about that is a few months ago, the U.S. was refusing to give those Patriot missiles because the reason was that if the U.S. gives those Patriot missiles, then U.S. forces will have to go into Ukraine to operate them because it takes months to train them. So maybe they got around that. Maybe they've been training some Ukrainians in how to use these missiles. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe they've just decided to send in some U.S. forces. But I don't think it will make a difference ultimately. And first of all, the Patriot missile has a sketchy track record. Like during the first Gulf War, they were supposed to be used to intercept Iraqi missiles, Scud missiles, but didn't do a very good job of that. But maybe they've improved on that since then. But I don't think ultimately, although, certainly this is a victory for proxy warriors that the U.S. is sending in weapons like this, I don't think it will make a very big difference.
Right. Oh, it's so depressing.
It really is. And it's I hate to say it, but it's about to get worse because it's winter now, and Russia has been knocking out the power supply, and that impacts civilians primarily in Ukraine. And there's just no talk right now, at least that we can see, of diplomacy. Well, are we going to end it, Katie, on that down note?
I think we should. I mean, I guess we don't really have anything else, and we don't have enough time.
Well,
I mean, we could show some Cuellar on the way out, but do we want to go out with Cuellar?
Yeah, sure. Well,
all right, let's show that Cuellar.
Yes. So, do you want to set this clip up?
Yeah. So this is Cuellar, the congressman from Texas, who's talking about Biden's plan for immigration, and let's play some of it, and then I'll respond too.
In a letter to the president this week, you warned that this week, when Title 42 lifts, they'll have a complete loss of operational control over the southern border. And that's going to have a profoundly negative impact on border communities. The White House is saying that they've got a plan here. Why are you saying they don't? What is it that you are hearing?
They've been talking about this plan for the last 2 years. They've been blaming the Republicans. They've been blaming Congress. How long is this plan going to be when will it take effect? I've seen that plan, with all due respect. A lot of it deals with processing, moving migrants from the border over to the interior. We need to have a way that we can have a policy where if Title 42 goes away, it looks like it's going to go away unless if the Supreme Court steps in. If it goes away, they have to have a policy of a orderly pathway to asylum through our bridges. And if they don't follow that pathway, they need to go back.
Okay, that's enough. So the point is, as you saw, he says that with all due respect, Biden doesn't have a plan. Now, I want to bring this up because he's obviously very critical of Biden, very undermining of Biden. And that's what the Democrats deserve. This guy's a Democrat, barely. He has an A rating from the NRA. He's anti-choice. And it's kind of rich to watch him go after Biden because, of course, he was challenged. He, as an incumbent, was challenged by Jessica Cisneros, an actual progressive, pro-choice progressive. And how did he eke out a victory against her? Well, thanks to the help of Nancy Pelosi, James Clyburn, and Steny Hoyer.
Oh, so, this was the guy who they campaigned for, right? Yeah. So Biden only has Nancy Pelosi to thank for this. It's a good thing we kept him in there. Someone wrote any news about Peru and U.S. involvement? No, there wasn't. I mean, from us or from the media? That's an interesting comment. It's a great way to wrap up. No talk of Peru. Oh, on the Sunday news shows? No, of course not.
Of course not, yeah.
No. Oh, come on. No.
Well, guys, it's 11:00. Oh, thank you, Wadeworth. Thank you for your generous super chat. So nice of you. You guys, there's so much more to discuss, and you're in luck because we're going to be there to discuss it with you at Call-In.
That's right. The world's hottest after party at 11 a.m. Eastern time on a Monday. Join us right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. See you soon.